Hey everyone. So today I thought I'd do a quick video about winter care for a lot of your houseplants. I've got a calathea in front of me because these are the plants that tend to get prone quite easily in the winter to pests, and more specifically spider mites, which is going to be a pest that you probably will see quite a lot in the winter time. So let's talk about the first thing to be aware of during the winter time and when you care for your plants is pests are probably going to multiply a lot more than you probably saw them in the summer. In the summer, it's warmer, it's more humid. You probably have some good air circulation going in the house because you've got the windows open. It means that pests like spider mites, like most other pests, aren't going to be around as much because it's harder for them to attach to those plants. Now, think about the winter. The winter, everything is closed up. You don't get much of a breeze within the house. You have much drier air because all the heating is on. It's a perfect breeding ground for things like spider mites, thrips, mealybugs, scale, anything like this to really multiply during the winter months. So the thing that you need to always be doing during the winter months is when you're watering your plants, don't do more than you need to be doing. Don't check for pests one day and then water another day. Whilst you're watering that specific plant, just lift the leaves up, have a quick look, see if you're seeing any spider webbing as well for the spider mites, and then treat accordingly. I know a lot of people will generally treat preventatively with neem oil. I absolutely hate the smell of neem. I've been using it for over a year now and I still haven't got used to the smell of it. So with me, I tend to treat after I see my plants, but I've never got to the stage where even with as many plants as I have that I end up getting a huge infestation and losing any plant due to any pests at the moment, touch wood, especially something like spider mites. So definitely check your plants during the winter months. The other thing that you want to be doing is pulling back considerably on the watering. The plants during this period of time, they probably aren't growing anywhere near as much as they were during the summer, or growing at all for that matter. So if you're not seeing any growth in your plant, really draw back on the watering, let things dry out before you water them, with a couple of exceptions. Obviously ferns aren't going to be the same, but with most other house plants, just pull back on the watering. The same thing actually with the calathea, you probably don't ever want to let it go completely bone dry, but with most other things like your philodendrons, like your anthuriums, like your ZZ plants, like all of these things, definitely your succulents, pull back until they're completely dry and then water them, flush it fully through again, and then you should be good. Now, feeding in the winter months, and I've mentioned this in several of my videos, if your plant is still actively growing in the winter, and I'm not talking about it growing huge in the winter, but there is some growth happening in the winter, I will still weekly fertilize. So I'll use the same fertilizer that I was using during the growing months, during the summer and spring, but I will dilute it even more so than I would normally. So they get a much weaker solution of the plant fertilizer. And most of my plants don't seem to mind at all. The reason why people don't necessarily want to fertilize, and I'll explain this, during the winter months, is if there isn't any growth at all and you keep putting fertilizer in the soil, you will start getting leaf burn because there's salt buildup and mineral buildup in the soil that the plant is not utilizing because it's not growing. But I'd rather kind of fertilize a small amount and give that there for the plant if it needs it. If it doesn't, if it's not growing at all, then I won't fertilize until I start seeing some of that new growth come in. But yeah, that's a bit more on fertilizing. So I mentioned pests, I mentioned watering, I mentioned fertilizing. The last thing I want to mention is light. So with some plants that do enjoy brighter light situations, in my care, I generally don't adjust anything. The plants that have got grow lights on them now are the same plants that had grow lights on them during the winter, during the summer and the springtime. But yeah, the plants still stay in the same place that I had them previously. There's maybe one or two plants of my huge collection that I would move into slightly better light situations for the winter, just because it might be struggling. A lot of times that might be the begonias. They just move them a bit closer to the light because they're a bit further back in the summer so they don't get scorched. But in the winter I just bring them up a slight bit closer to get some more light. But other than that, I leave most of my plants where they are. They get a bit of a rest during the winter months. And yeah, just bear in mind that some of your plants will need a bit more light. So for instance, if you've had succulents and you've been growing them okay in, say, a west-facing window, you might want to consider moving them to a south-facing window if you've got that, or maybe move them even closer to the window if at all possible. If you've got them pulled back, move them a bit closer to the windows just to give them a bit more light during those winter months where there's a lot less light hours happening in the day. So that's it. So things to remember when it comes to winter: definitely check for pests, pull back a bit on the watering, either reduce or stop fertilizing, but again, see if the plant is actively growing, and make sure that your plant is still getting the level of light that it needs to survive the winter months. Most plants will not thrive in the winter months, but you need to get them to survive. The only exception to this one, I'll throw this in here as a bit of a bonus tip, is peperomia. Peperomia, from what I was reading online, they are plants that actively grow more in the winter and autumn months than they do in the spring and summer. So actually, if you want to have something that will grow during these cooler, darker nights of the year, get yourself a couple of peperomia and they will give you that kind of growth that you're looking for even in the winter months. That's everything. If you've got any questions, comments, drop them down below. Let's have that conversation. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed, and hopefully I shall see you here soon. Thanks. Bye.